This is Chuck. He earned his yellow belt in 2009 and never trained again. Last month, he picked a fight with a stranger at a sports bar. Who's that stranger, you ask? His former sensei's son. You can probably guess what happened next. Part 1. The Former Student. Chuck the Thunder Donovan strutted through the sports bar with the confidence of a man who once earned his yellow belt after 18 months of training. 15 years had passed since he stepped foot in the Peaceful Dragon Karate Academy, but in his mind, he was still a martial arts prodigy, whose training had been cruelly cut short by life circumstances. What actually happened? His mother stopped paying for his lessons when he turned 30. "That guy over there," Chuck said, gesturing wildly with his beard towards a man quietly watching the baseball game, "giving me the stink eye." Chuck's friend Dave squinted at the stranger. "I don't think he is, man. He's just watching the game." "Oh no, no. I know hostile body language when I see it. It was a part of my advanced karate training." Chuck had in fact missed the body language reading seminar due to a scheduling conflict with his World of Warcraft raid. Dave sighed. "Just leave it alone. We're here to watch the game, remember?" But Chuck was already halfway across the bar, his beer sloshing dangerously. He planted himself in front of the stranger, a trim, unassuming man in his 40s. "You got a problem with me?" Chuck demanded, assuming what he believed was a fighting stance, but it looked more like he was trying to stop himself from falling over. The man looked confused. "Excuse me? I saw you staring me down. Not smart, buddy. I'm a trained martial artist." Chuck performed a sloppy chop motion in the air, narrowly missing a waitress carrying a tray of nachos. "Sir, I was watching the TV behind you. The Dodgers are up," the man said calmly, pointing to the screen. "I have no idea who you are." "Classic intimidation technique," Chuck scoffed, "acting all innocent. Well, it won't work on me. I studied under Master Miyamoto at the Peaceful Dragon Academy. Perhaps you've heard of it." Chuck puffed his chest out, which had expanded considerably since his karate days. The man's eyes showed a flicker of recognition. "Actually, So you have heard of it," Chuck crowed, cutting him off. "Then you know not to mess with me. I was on the fast track to the advanced class before I took my sabbatical." "Sir, I really think you should go back to your friend," the man said, nodding towards Dave, who at this point was pretending not to know Chuck. "What, you scared now?" Chuck sneered. He reached out and poked the man's shoulder. "Yellow belt beats no belt, my friend." The man sighed deeply. "Please don't touch me again." "Or what, you'll cry?" Chuck poked him again, harder this time. What happened next? Well, it was a blur. Later, Chuck would tell the police that the man executed an illegal death touch, but witnesses described it as a simple defensive move. The man gently redirected Chuck's momentum, causing Chuck to stumble backward, trip over a bar stool, and land squarely on his rear end. The entire bar fell silent before erupting in laughter at Chuck's misfortune. Chuck's face turned red as he scrambled to his feet. "You're dead meat," he shouted, charging forward with all the grace of a wounded rhinoceros. The man simply sidestepped, allowing Chuck to barrel past him and crash into a plate of appetizers. Buffalo wings, mozzarella sticks, and chips and queso flew everywhere. When Chuck finally extracted himself from the mess, the man was standing over him, not even breathing hard. "Are you done now?" the man asked. Chuck lunged from his position on the floor, attempting to grab the man's leg. The man simply shifted his weight, causing Chuck to face plant on the sticky bar floor. "Stay down. Please," the man said, his voice still calm. "I don't want to hurt you." "Too late. I'm already injured," Chuck wailed, holding his nose, which was now trickling blood. "Assault! I'm calling the police!" The bartender, who had been watching the entire scene, stepped forward. "The only one getting the police called on them is you, buddy. This gentleman was defending himself after you attacked him twice." "But I'm the victim! I'm bleeding!" The man finally knelt down beside Chuck. "Look, I didn't want this to happen, but you should know something. I'm Daniel Miyamoto." Chuck's eyes widened. "As in, yes, Master Miyamoto was my father. I took over the Peaceful Dragon Academy when he retired, or at least I ran it up until last year when we closed." He offered Chuck a hand up. "And for the record, you were never on the track to the advanced class. Dad kept you in the beginner's class because you kept trying to add nunchucks to every routine." Part 2. The Comeback Plan. 2 weeks after the humiliating bar incident, which had unfortunately been captured on multiple cell phones and garnered over 100,000 views on YouTube, Chuck sat in his basement apartment, nursing both his wounded pride and a consultation bill from a lawyer who had laughed him out of the office. "It's not right," Chuck muttered to his cat, Mr. Miyagi. "I paid good money for those lessons, and I was promised self-defense skills that would last a lifetime." The cat yawned indifferently. "Don't you see? This is false advertising. I lost a fight." "Me? After all that training?" Chuck paced around his living room, barely avoiding the collection of anime figurines that decorated every surface. "The Peaceful Dragon Academy guaranteed results!" He pulled out an old wrinkled brochure from his wallet. Yes, he kept it for 15 years. The faded text read, "Learn the ancient art of self-defense. Results may vary based on dedication, practice, and continued training." Chuck had ignored the last part. "See, they guaranteed it. And now I've been publicly humiliated. My reputation is ruined." Mr. Miyagi jumped off the couch and wandered toward his food ball, apparently unconvinced by Chuck's legal reasoning. "You know what? I'm going to sue them. The academy may be closed, but Daniel Miyamoto isn't going to get away with this. I'll sue for emotional distress, physical injury, breach of contract." Chuck was on a roll now, pacing faster. "I'll sue for 15 years of mental anguish, knowing that I possessed lethal skills I couldn't use." Chuck grabbed his phone and searched for lawyers specializing in martial arts litigation, which unsurprisingly yielded no results. He was undeterred. He expanded his search to lawyers who handle false advertising and found Dewey, Chatham, and Howe, attorneys at law. "Perfect," Chuck grinned, dialing the number. Daniel Miyamoto was not going to get away with this. Nobody disrespects Chuck Thunder Donovan, I tell ya! Nobody! Part 3. The Legal Battle. Surprisingly, the law firm of Dewey, Chatham & Howe agreed to meet with Chuck. Less surprisingly, they were located in a strip mall between a vape shop and a store that only sold calendars, and their office smelled strongly of cheese. "So, Mr. Donovan," said Harvey Dewey, a man whose mustache seemed to be trying to escape his face, "you want to sue a karate school that closed down a year ago because you lost a bar fight 15 years after you stopped taking lessons. Is that the story?" When they put it that way, it did sound a bit ridiculous, but Chuck was committed. "Exactly! They promised I would learn self-defense, and when I needed it most, their training failed me!" Dewey exchanged glances with his partner, Benny Chatham, who was eating a sandwich that appeared to be leaking something purple. "And you have the brochure that guarantees this?" Dewey asked. Chuck triumphantly slapped the pamphlet on the desk, stabbing his finger at the "results may vary" line, as if it were the smoking gun in a murder case. "I see," Dewey said, adjusting his tie, which featured the cartoon scales of justice. "And you're aware that you stopped training 15 years ago, and that most skills, particularly physical ones, require ongoing practice?" "That's not the point," Chuck insisted. "It's like riding a bike. Once you learn, you never forget." "But karate isn't like riding a bike, Mr. Donovan," Chatham interjected, wiping purple goo from his chin. "It's more like playing the piano. If you don't practice for 15 years, you're going to be rusty. Besides, according to this viral video, he turned his computer monitor to show Chuck the bar fight footage, which now had over 200,000 views and several remixes to different soundtracks. You initiated the conflict, technically making you the aggressor." Chuck slouched in his chair. "So, you won't take my case?" Dewey stroked his escaping mustache thoughtfully. "I didn't say that. We'll take your case, Mr. Donovan." Chuck perked up. "You will?" "Absolutely. Our fee is $500 per hour, with a $5,000 retainer up front." Dewey slid a contract across the desk. "We specialize in... well, let's just say we specialize in creative legal approaches." Chatham nodded enthusiastically, sending a drop of purple goo flying onto Chuck's shoe. "Very creative." Chuck hesitated, looking at the contract. "And you think we can win?" Dewey and Chatham exchanged another glance. "Let's just say we guarantee results," Dewey said with a wink, "though results may vary." Part 4. The Deposition. 3 weeks and $4,985 of his retainer later, Chuck found himself in a small conference room for Daniel Miyamoto's deposition. His lawyers had managed to track down the former karate instructor, who agreed to the deposition mostly out of curiosity. "Please state your name for the record," Dewey instructed. His mustache was particularly lively today. "Daniel Miyamoto," Daniel replied calmly. And were you the owner and chief instructor of the now defunct Peaceful Dragon Karate Academy? Yes, until late last year when we closed due to rising rent costs. Chuck glared at him from across the table. Daniel nodded politely in return. Mr. Miyamoto, did your academy guarantee that students would be able to defend themselves in all situations, regardless of how many years had passed since their training? Daniel blinked. Of course not. That would be ridiculous. But your brochure stated, and I quote, "Learn the ancient art of self-defense." Dewey thrust the brochure towards Daniel triumphantly. Yes, we taught self-defense, Daniel agreed, but the brochure also states that results may vary based on dedication, practice, and continued training. Mr. Donovan attended classes sporadically for 18 months, 15 years ago. He achieved a yellow belt, which is the second most basic rank in our system. So you admit your training was insufficient, huh? Daniel looked confused. No, I'm saying Mr. Donovan didn't continue his training. It's like taking a few piano lessons and then being upset you can't play Chopin 15 years later without having touched the piano in between. At this, Chuck slammed his fist on the table. That's not true! I practiced all the time! Daniel raised an eyebrow. Really? Because your mother, who by the way called regularly to complain about your lack of progress, mentioned that you could have been spending more time at home practicing our techniques instead of trying to recreate special moves from Mortal Kombat. Chuck's face reddened. That was supplemental training! Come on, Mr. Donovan. You once spent an entire class trying to master what you called the crane kick from a movie, despite our repeated explanations that it wasn't a part of our curriculum. Well, it should have been. It's iconic. Dewey cleared his throat, looking increasingly uncomfortable. Let's move on. Mr. Miyamoto, are you the individual who assaulted my client at a bar 3 weeks ago? Daniel sighed. I defended myself after Mr. Donovan approached me aggressively and made physical contact twice after I asked him not to touch me. So you're admitting you touched my client? I only touched him after he poked me twice and charged me. Yes, I redirected his momentum to prevent injury to both of us. Dewey consulted his notes. And you're an expert in deadly martial arts techniques? I'm a 4th degree black belt in Shotokan Karate? Yes, but I didn't use any deadly techniques. I simply stepped out of the way when Mr. Donovan charged at me. His own momentum did the rest. Yet, my client suffered injuries. Dewey gestured dramatically toward Chuck, who immediately adopted a pained expression and clutched his nose, which had healed 2 weeks earlier. Your client suffered a bloody nose after face-planting on the floor while trying to tackle me, Daniel corrected. And might I add, the entire incident was captured on video from multiple angles. Dewey's mustache drooped noticeably. Yes, well, that's your version of events. It's everyone's version of events, Daniel replied, including the bartender, 12 patrons, and approximately 350,000 YouTube viewers. Chuck slumped in his chair. The view count keeps going up, he said miserably. Daniel turned to Chuck. Look, Chuck, I'm sorry you were embarrassed. But this lawsuit is absurd. You haven't practiced karate in 15 years. You started a fight with a stranger in a bar, and now you're trying to blame my father's dojo for the consequences of your actions. But I was supposed to be able to defend myself, Chuck insisted, although with noticeably less vigor. Self-defense begins with avoiding unnecessary confrontations, Daniel said. That was literally the first lesson in our beginner class, the one you were 15 minutes late to, if I remember correctly. Chuck had no response for that. Part 5. The Settlement. 2 days after that disastrous deposition, Chuck received a call from Dewey. Good news, Mr. Donovan. The defendant has offered a settlement. Chuck couldn't believe it. Really? How much? Well, it's not exactly monetary, Dewey hedged. Mr. Miyamoto has offered to provide you 10 free private lessons to refresh your skills. That's it? After all this humiliation? He has also agreed not to countersue you for legal fees and frivolous litigation, Dewey quickly added, which frankly is generous considering the circumstances. Chuck went silent for a moment. And what would you recommend? Dewey sighed, his mustache practically audible over the phone. Take the deal, Mr. Donovan. Take the deal and be grateful. 2 weeks later, Chuck stood nervously outside Daniel Miyamoto's new, much smaller dojo tucked behind a health food store. He was wearing his old gi, which was considerably tighter than he remembered. The yellow belt barely reached around his expanded waistline. Daniel greeted him at the door with a bow. Welcome back, Chuck. Chuck returned the bow awkwardly. Thanks for, not countersuing me into oblivion. Daniel nodded. Everyone deserves a second chance, especially former students. Even the ones that try to sue you? Especially them, Daniel smiled. They clearly need the most help with the mental aspects of martial arts. Patience, wisdom, restraint, and not starting fights in bars, Chuck suggested sheepishly. That's a good place to start, Daniel agreed. Now let's begin with the basics. And Chuck? Yes, Sensei? No crane kicks. Epilogue. 6 months later, the sports bar hosted a charity event to benefit the local children's hospital. Among the volunteers was Chuck Donovan, now sporting an orange belt. He'd finally advanced, and 15 pounds lighter. He worked alongside Daniel Miyamoto, serving drinks and collecting donations. When a rowdy patient began causing trouble, it was Chuck who stepped in, using his newly refined conflict de-escalation skills to calm the situation without a single karate chop. As the event wound down, Daniel patted Chuck on the back. Nice works tonight. Your mother would be proud. Chuck beaming. Thanks, Sensei. I still think the crane kick should be a part of the curriculum. Daniel laughed. Some battles aren't worth fighting, Chuck. Yeah, Chuck agreed, looking around the bar where his humiliation had began. I'm finally starting to understand that. As they cleaned up, someone approached Chuck for an autograph. "Aren't you the guy from that viral video?" the teenager asked. "The one who got owned in a bar fight?" Chuck winced and nodded. "Yeah, that's me." "Cool. My friends and I practice your moves all the time. We call it the Donovan method. How to fall on your face with style." Daniel stepped in smoothly. "Actually, Chuck here is now teaching a class on how not to end up in viral videos. Perhaps you'd like to sign up?" As the teenager walked away with a brochure for the dojo's new social media safety and self-defense class, Chuck looked at Daniel gratefully. "The true martial artist turns defeat into victory," Daniel said with a wink. "Does that mean I'm finally on track for the advanced class?" Chuck asked hopefully. Daniel laughed. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves, but you're definitely moving in the right direction." And for Chuck, that was enough. He'd learned that sometimes the most powerful stance in karate isn't a fighting position at all. If you enjoyed this story of ego, embarrassment, and enlightenment, smash the like button and subscribe for more wild, true-to-life stories. Drop a comment below. What's the dumbest reason you've ever seen someone threaten to sue? I'll read the best ones in my next video. And remember, if you haven't practiced karate in 15 years, maybe don't start bar fights. Just a thought.